What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Crack-A-Pack series. I hope you all are doing super well today. I'm doing extremely well. Very happy to be here, opening up a pack of Ixalan, which is obviously a relatively new set, something that we've seen a lot of. I get it, but there are some really interesting cards in here that I'm hoping we get to pull. Of course, as we go through this, we're going to do this as if we are drafting the set, so we will determine what our first round draft pick would be. I will say I drafted this set a decent amount, not as much necessarily as I would have liked, but I do feel that I know the cards well enough to hopefully be able to give you some sound advice. Our first card here is Sun-Crowned Hunters. It is a 5/4 for 4 and 2 red. It also features Enrage, which is a really interesting mechanic where if it is dealt damage, it deals 3 damage to target opponent. Now, the Enrage mechanic was really interesting. It focused obviously more on the dinosaur end of things. A lot of tribal stuff was in this set, dinosaurs being one of them. Enrage was featured mostly on the, I believe, red-green side of things. Don't know that white so much had the Enrage stuff with it, but it may have. However, very interesting because obviously you're trying to deal damage to your own creatures to gain that benefit. In this case, 3 damage to the opponent, which is very good. However, 6 mana for a 5/4 tends not to be the best. It's probably just going to either trade with something, chump something, do something like that. It might get in there for some damage, but ideally it's probably just going to be trading off with something and then dealing that 3 damage to the opponent, which it's maybe worth it. That 3 damage could win you the game, but I don't think that it's first pickable by any means. Not something I'm super interested in. Vampire's Zeal is an instant for 1 white. Target creature gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn. Here we see that tribal synergy again. If it's a vampire, it also gains first strike until the end of the turn. This is very good in the vampire deck. It's a great combat trick for that deck. It's really good, honestly, in any white deck because it is a +2/+2 buff for only 1 mana. That's perfectly fine. I would happily take that. However, it is a combat trick. Not interested in this early in the pack. You want to pick these up later in the game. If you are in the vampire deck, this is much more appealing to you. That first strike can really make a big difference. But in general, it is still a combat trick, so not super exciting. Deadeye Tormentor is a 2/2 for 2 and a black. Here we're featuring the pirate mechanic of Raid. When it enters the battlefield, if you attacked with a creature this turn, target opponent discards a card. I actually kind of like this card. In the game, in the limited game of Magic, I think it's really fun to be able to discard the opponent's hand because it just denies them resources. Even if it is just a land, it's added value, it's keeping them off of a card, and if you get enough of these, it actually does a lot. I mean, you start to discard more than 1 card every once in a while, and they're going to be dwindling on resources pretty quick. Get them down to that top deck position where they're really living off the top of their deck, and you're great. However, there are going to be instances where this isn't good. Late in the game, it tends not to be the best because they're probably top decking anyway. And if they aren't, it's probably not the most important card in their hand. It's probably just not a very relevant card. At least that's what I have found. So this is a perfectly fine card. Not first pickable by any means, but in the pirate deck, I would absolutely play it. It's perfectly fine there. Shipwreck Looter is a 2/1 for 1 and a blue, again featuring Raid, so when it enters the battlefield, if you attacked with a creature this turn, you may draw a card, and if you do, you discard a card, so it's the classic Looter effect, featured with the Raid mechanic. Again, very good in the Pirates deck. It's very good. Really, I say Pirates, it's good in just an aggressive deck. That should be what I'm saying here, because if you can trigger the Raid mechanic, it's good. If you can't, this is just a 2/1 for 2. Which isn't as bad as, say, a 2/2 for 3 with the Deadeye Tormentor, but it's still not great. It's going to probably trade off early game, and that's about it. So it's okay. Again, not first pickable, unfortunately, but it's fine. Commune with Dinosaurs is a sorcery for 1 green. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a dinosaur or a land card from among them and put it into your hand. You then put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This is an interesting card because I would argue there are some people that find this card very good in that dinosaur deck. And then I would also find that some people would rather have something like a decent creature in this card slot or something like that. I find that it really depends on the deck that you're in. If you're in a dinosaur deck, obviously, yes, it's okay. But if there's in particular cards in your deck that you're really digging for, if you get a really good bomb like a Burning Avatar or whatever, the red dinosaur that does a ton of stuff, get something like that. That's great. then this card becomes much, much better because you're digging for a specific card. If you're just kind of digging for a random dinosaur, I find it not to be so good. So I think that it depends on the deck that you build with the cards that you get. Definitely not first pickable without a doubt, though. Hierophant's Chalice, hope I'm saying that correctly, is an artifact for 3 of any color. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent loses a life and you gain a life, and then it does tap for 1 generic mana. I don't like this quite so much. In a ramp deck, it's perfectly fine. Excuse me, something caught in my throat there. In a ramp deck, it is perfectly fine because you are going to be wanting to get to that high mana cost very, very quickly. But it's really not the best. I'd much rather have something that fixes the mana or does something like that. Instead, this literally just gives you a generic mana. Does drain the opponent for a life, which is cool, but it's not like that's going to necessarily win you the game. Unless somebody out there has won the game with this, then I will concede this is a good card. But other than that, not super interested. Costly Plunder is an instant for 1 and a black. As an additional cost, you sacrifice an artifact or a creature, and then you draw 2 cards. This is interesting because there are probably instances where this is very, very good when you can like steal an opponent's creature or do something like that. However, generally speaking, I find it's not. Drawing 2 cards by sacrificing an artifact or creature tends not to be the best. There are treasure tokens in this set, if I'm not mistaken, and in that case, it's much better because you're going to have the artifacts to fuel this, and in which case, you're going to want to be able to sacrifice those to draw more cards to be able to deal, either spit more threats out or deal with the opponent's board, do something like that. In that deck, I think it's probably okay. However, outside of that, I find that it's probably very, very bad. Fire Cannon Blast is a sorcery for 1 and 2 red. It deals 3 damage to target creature, and then raid. So if it deals 6 damage to that creature instead if you attacked with a creature this turn. So far, this is 100% the pick, and that's a little sad. 3 damage to target creature is good, though. It's a removal spell. I like that. Being able to deal 6 damage to target creature is fantastic. Yes, you do have to attack with the creature first, which is a little bit tricky. But generally speaking, this is going to hit something very, very well. So definitely interested in this. So far, definitely the pick. Direfleet Interloper is a 2/2 for 3 and a black. It has Menace, so it can only be blocked by 2 or more creatures. And then when it enters the battlefield, it explores. So if you don't know what that does, you reveal the top card of your deck, put that card into your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, you can put a +1/+1 counter on this creature and then put that card back on top or put it into your graveyard. Something to note here, this is not always going to draw you a card. Sometimes it's just deck thinning, but that is worthwhile. Explorer is a very, very good mechanic. It's one that we saw kind of take over for a little bit, and then in some cases even right now with the Golgari Citadel deck and things like that. Shameless plug, you can watch me play that deck right now if you want to. It is up on our channel. The Explorer trigger is very much the backbone of that deck. It's the thing that keeps it moving forward, and I love that. It's very, very powerful. A 2/2 for 4, generally speaking, not so good. Adding Menace to it makes it a little bit better, but it's still probably going to just get blocked and killed. The Explorer, I like because it thins the top. It fixes the top of your deck at least somewhat, and that I like very much. Getting a 3/3 with Menace for 4 does feel quite a lot better as well, and so I think there's something there for it. But I'd honestly just rather have the Fire Cannon Blast because it's just good removal, and so for that reason, not as interested in the Interloper here. Encampment Keeper is a 1/1 for 1 white with first strike, and then you can pay 7 and a white, tap it and sacrifice it, and creatures you control get +2/+2 until the end of the turn. Something I'll say, if you take off that 8 costed ability, you get a 1/1 for 1 with first strike. And honestly, that's okay. That's perfectly playable. I would 100% play that if I didn't have any other 1-drops. That's perfectly fine with me. That other bonus ability on there is just a bonus ability. I think 90% of the time you're not going to get there with that. That being said, that other little bit of percentage that you do, it can actually get you very, very far. It's an Anthem effect, so it's going to buff your entire team. If you're in a go-wide strategy, that's great. It's going to do lots of stuff. So I actually think this is a pretty good 1-drop just in general, but I'd still take the blast. It's just removal. Removal is very, very premium, and so that's why I'm taking it. Heartless Pillage is a sorcery for 2 and a black. Target opponent discards 2 cards, And then for raid, if you attacked with a creature this turn, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap it, sacrifice it, and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Again, now we're seeing where that treasure is coming into play. I do think that makes some cards very okay, I will say. Maybe some very, very good. I find this card just medium. I think it's fine. Being able to discard 2 cards from the opponent on turn 3, perfectly usable. Getting an extra little treasure token out of it, even better. I'll take it. It's a better mind rot for sure, but I'd still probably just rather have the blast. It's pure removal, very, very powerful, very much what I'm looking for. Sentinel Totem is an artifact for 1 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you scry 1, so you can look at the top card of your library and put that card either on top or bottom. And then you can tap it, sacrifice it, and exile the Sentinel Totem, and then exile all cards from all graveyards. This is very much a sideboard card for Constructed. It is not really a limited card. There might be an instance where you side it in against a deck, but it's going to be very few and far between. So very uninteresting, honestly. Not something that I'm interested in picking up. River Sneak is a 1/1 for 1 and a blue. It cannot be blocked, and then whenever another merfolk enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn. I very much like this card for the merfolk deck. Obviously, it's very, very good. Making sure that it can't be blocked is great. It just means it's going to be able to swing in for a lot of damage, especially if you can just flood the board with tons and tons of merfolk, which tends to be what that deck does. So I do like it for that reason. The only reason I don't like it is a bit of a pigeonhole. You take it early and we haven't seen any other merfolk in the pack, and you come back and you just don't have any merfolk to pick. And so there could be a situation where this is either very, very good or very, very bad. It's a very good card to have in merfolk, but the blast is much more lucrative. It's much more flexible. So I think that that's a bit of a judgment call based on whatever your play style is and what risk you want to take. I would play it safe and take the blast. That does not mean it's correct to take the blast. I think the River Sneak is probably a better card overall. So I'll leave that up to you guys, but I'm definitely going to take the blast here. Oh, okay. Well, we got Admiral Beckett Brass. So this is an interesting one. It's a 3/3 for 1, and then the Grixis colors of blue, black, and red. It is a pirate. Other pirates you control get +1/+1, and then at the beginning of your end step, gain control of target non-land permanent controlled by a player who has dealt combat damage by 3 or more pirates this turn. All that is a lot of text to say you get to steal stuff if you attack with a lot of stuff, which is exactly what the pirate deck wants to do, and exactly what this card enables by being a lord for the pirate deck. 100%, this is a weird pick because it's Grixis, and like that's a lot of different colors to throw into a card or a deck like from Ixalan, but I definitely like this one. It's definitely going to be the pick. No foil, nothing else to talk about. So Admiral Beckett Brass, definitely going to be the pick for me. Feel free to let me know in the comment section below if you disagree. But if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like or a comment down below. And then as always, please make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of our awesome content. But with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next Crack a Pack episode.